We just saw Microsoft laying off 6,000 people. We see Amazon continuously laying off people. We saw Philips lay off 6,000 people. Product managers are getting laid off, unfortunately, left and right. And so the supply of product managers, very high. The demand for product management jobs is nowhere near what it was 3 or 4 years ago. When we looked at the number of open product management jobs, I look at this every year on September. I do a search on LinkedIn, worldwide product manager. Those jobs are still down 90%. Supply of product managers, you could say 1.5x higher. So from a market perspective, economics perspective,
what is the most important thing for you to have to succeed in jobs?
So the top 3 skills to demonstrate in an interview: business skills, structured thinking, and strategic thinking. The top 3 skills maybe not to focus as much on.
If I'm a new PM who's trying to improve those top 3 skills, like what would you suggest that was?
The funny thing is, a lot of times engineers, they don't even know. They didn't get that information. Unfortunately, they may not have had a very good product manager who told them that. The vast majority of questions you get are behavioral. So let's think about that, right?
How AI can leverage, help optimize resume and some of the cover letters too.
I can show you how this is done. Let's just show people
Yeah.
a live demo here. So, and boom. So it's come up with your new resume. From generic resume to a highly customized resume that screams to the AI applicant tracking system and the recruiter and the hiring manager, yes, this is the right person.
What are the common mistakes that people are doing, you think, in this job search?
The way interviews work is your skill keeps getting better. Just take a second-tier city in Europe, Helsinki. If you're in any of these places, there may only be 15 jobs. You need to think very carefully about, how am I going to create a really nice work product? And if they're just saying, they just messaged me on LinkedIn, it's as good as not having a ref.
Maybe start with like some insights which you, or patterns which you can talk about, which leads you to offers from the point you have gotten your first interview.
A lot of people, they don't have good signal on this. And it's doubly compounded because companies these days, they're often not giving you feedback. They're just saying, hey, sorry, Srinath, we decided to go with somebody else. So one of the first things to do is actually try to look very carefully at what stage in the funnel did I fail. And actually what I highly recommend doing is getting a transcript of your recording.
Are there any other AI tools that people can actually use to be better prepared at facing these interviews?
So I think I'm pretty much the only person in the world who's looked at this, which is, what are the AI job searching tools out there?
What are some of the best ways or any AI tools that are in place to help with any salary negotiation?
You guys have to negotiate. Even if this is your only offer, even if you have been on the market for 9 months, negotiate. They're not going to take away your offer if
all to Akash, but now Akash is also a podcaster and has done a lot of podcast episodes, so he knows all the nuances there.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so let's get started, Akash. But before I get into the podcast episode, right? So last time, I think when we talked about your video has been like the most watched and the most popular video on our channel. And I think last time when I talked, you were actually thinking about starting a podcast, or I think were in at least in a preparation to do that. But now you have a full-fledged podcast. So let's start with the question, right? How has your experience been?
Podcasting is one of those things that it's pretty hard to grow a podcast. And you guys have done a lot of hard work growing your podcast via Instagram and YouTube and your LinkedIn profiles. And I saw the success that Lenny had with his podcast. And I said, maybe I could just grow as fast as him. But Lenny has a next level distribution, right? He has 1 million subscribers. I'm sitting at 170,000. It turns out that it's a lot of work. And what I've noticed is that, when I was 50 episodes in, I had 4.6 thousand YouTube subscribers. Now I'm 70 episodes in, I have 10.5K subscribers. So I'm finally hitting that escape velocity where each episode I'm growing faster than the last. And so It's that classic thing that came up by Jack Busher and Visualize Value many years ago. They had this chart where they said, nobody's watching, and then you explode. So what I'm hoping is that I'm on that right there in that inflection point where the growth is finally going to keep picking up and growing faster. But I've been loving it because you learn so much in these podcasts. Today, I just had Jason Fried, the founder of 37 Signals. I've been following his work for like 15 years. He said, yeah, I'll do a podcast with you. I wouldn't have had access to him if I wasn't doing the podcast. So while growth has been something that's been a lot of work, it's been so fun learning from these awesome people.
Yeah, I think we completely can relate to that, because it's not that easy to grow a podcast, and that's why you see it. There's not many product podcasts. Like, there are so many podcasts that people start, but 6 months down the line they're like, okay, I'm done with it, I can't maintain it or sustain it. But I think, as you said, right, it is that richer insights, right? You actually have that 1 hour to dig deep into one topic, and you actually can go into so much deeper than normally writing an article, or getting to know a person more, right? So I think, yeah, that's
And
absolutely.
another thing which probably is important is consistency. Consistency is pretty key because people expect you to like not disappear, like, oh, have that frequency like we do generally once a week. That I felt really helped. So people had expectations that every Saturday or Friday a new episode is going to come from Everything Product. They're going to learn something new. So that we set that high bar. I mean, which is also pushing us, but at the same time, as you said, we're able to learn so much and get that diverse perspective.
That's right. Yeah, and I've also seen that, like, specifically the topics which we talk about, right? A lot of times it's very hard to get that organic push from YouTube, compared to a general topic which is like a daily vlog or certain things. That's where your distribution helps a lot. So there's a lot of push that you have to do once your podcast is out to get that views and watch time and so on and so forth. So yeah. All right, so I think let's dive into the hot topic now, Akash. So I know a lot of people are struggling to find a new job in this market, and you have made a lot of posts about these big companies doing layoffs and trying to readjust their workforce and so on and so forth. And I've also seen a lot of people on LinkedIn talk about different strategies to acquire a job, right? So it's people, some people say quality is important, right? You just double down on one position and then apply for that. Some people say quantity is more important, right? Keep applying for more and more so that you can hit the right job. And I've also talked to people who have used these strategies, and like, both of the strategies work for some people, and some people do a hybrid approach. But I want to understand your take on the market now, and what job strategies which people should use to get a job. And also, you have been like using a lot of AI tools and doing a lot of episodes on using AI tools to accelerate the work which are people normally do some workflow and so on and so forth. So what is your hot take on that? Let's start with that and then dig deep into some of the topics. Yeah.
What worked for you to get a job in your last job search 3 to 4 years ago isn't going to work for you today. And that's because the job search is fundamentally participating in a market. In a market, we need to take our lessons from economics. We need to look at supply and demand. The supply of people interested in product management and experienced product managers is still high. We just saw Microsoft laying off 6,000 people. We see Amazon continuously laying off people. We saw Philips lay off 6,000 people. Product managers are getting laid off, unfortunately, left and right. And so the supply of product managers, very high. The demand for product management jobs is nowhere near what it was 3 or 4 years ago. When we looked at the number of open product management jobs, I look at this every year on September. I do a search on LinkedIn, worldwide product manager. Those jobs are still down 90%. So the
80%.
demand for product managers, you could say 10x less. Supply of product managers, you could say 1.5x higher. So from a market perspective, economics perspective, it's very tough out there. So with that in mind, what you used to do, where you used to just spray and pray your resume to 500 jobs, then you get maybe 20 interviews, and then, you get 2 offers. That was a common approach. A lot of people used it. Or you just spray and drop your resume the first 24 hours after a job comes off with your basic resume you have for that industry. A lot of people that worked for, especially if they had good experience. In fact, my brother, he was a PM at Apple. He got 4 PM offers. He had just 4 interviews. He just dropped his resume at 4 places. He didn't customize his resume. Boom, he did it, right? Because he had great experience. Now, when those types of people dip their toes in the market, they're not seeing the same results. Unfortunately, you need to work harder. You need to have a differentiated job search strategy. So you can't just copy and paste whatever strategy I'm about to share with you. You need to create your own strategy so that you are differentiated from the other candidates because this market is so tough.
So yeah, that's right. And I've also seen a post from you talking about you analyzing all the different PM interviews and try to correlate it with the skills people have and so on and so forth. So can you maybe talk about like what is the most important thing for you to have to succeed in job search?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of share my screen so people can see what this is all about. So basically what we did is one of my friends, Mikhail Sheglov, he's a chief product officer at Umiko. He worked at some of Europe's hottest tech companies like Bolt and Yandex. And he did this cool thing where he actually coded everybody he interviewed on these 11 skills that you see here. And then he didn't say, did I pass them in the interview? He actually looked at, did they get an offer? So he took this input data and he correlated it to, did they get an offer, with a logistic regression. And what this shows you is the correlation coefficients of that regression. So the top 3 skills to demonstrate in an interview: business skills, structured thinking, and strategic thinking. The top 3 skills, maybe not to focus as much on: creativity, project management, and technical skills. And it's not to say that everything in the middle here, storytelling, culture fit, data fluency, isn't important. But when you go into an interview, the way to succeed in an interview is to say, I want to demonstrate these things. I want to talk about these stories. Just like in this podcast, before I came in, I said, I want to demonstrate these few things in this podcast. In an interview, you want to come in with your own agenda, because an interview is not like a journalistic interview where they're trying to understand the facts. An interview is a sales pitch. With a sales pitch, you want to come in with, I want to pitch these things. And so the way to pitch yourself is say, I have strong business skills. I'm going to structure all of my answers into 3 points or a framework, and I'm going to show that I impact the strategy. Those things are really the differentiators into what gets you an offer.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Akash. So as you said, right, the top 3 skills, right? So I'm assuming that's something which you develop, right? As you practice more, you develop the muscle, and then you basically exhibit that in the interview. So like if I were to ask, right, if I'm a new PM who's trying to improve those top 3 skills, like what would you suggest that person?
So let's go skill by skill. Let's start with business skills, right? So the very first thing is that when you're talking, let's say you're new to PM, let's say you're engineer moving into product management. It's the most common, right? So most engineers, they want to talk about, hey, I shipped this feature, but it's not just I shipped this feature. It's what was the business impact of the feature that I shipped? And the funny thing is, a lot of times engineers, they don't even know. They didn't get that information. Unfortunately, they may not have had a very good product manager who told them that. So then they need to actually go back into their past, maybe reach back out to a product manager from a prior job and say, hey, what was the business impact of this feature? So that when they talk about that feature in the interview, they say, hey, I drove a 6% improvement in activation rate. We shipped this new onboarding flow. And what this onboarding flow did is it personalized based on the type of user you are. You see how different that is than I shipped personalized onboarding, right? One is much more focused on business impact. And then the other element of business impact is, can you drive business impact? So when it comes to a case interview, when you're coming up with those creative solutions for product design, don't just end there. Talk about, hey, these are the metrics I would use to evaluate it. This is how much I think the estimated impact could be. So that's business skills. The second is structured thinking. You want to think about structured thinking both in terms of your behavioral interviews and your case interviews. The vast majority of questions you get are behavioral. So let's think about that, right? Even in this answer, I structured my answer, right? I said, let's talk about the 3 skills. Then I'm walking through the 3 skills. It's the similar type of approach you want to take with your questions. Let's say they say, hey, Sid, what's the biggest challenge you faced at work, right? You're not just going to immediately talk about the story. You're going to say, okay, I want to talk to you about this time where I overcame a challenge at Spotify. When I was at Spotify, we had this context, and I'll talk to you about the impact. Then you go into the context, then you talk about the impact because you've created this little bit of framing and structure. So that's behavioral questions. And then there's case questions. A lot of people, they know, okay, I need to have a framework. And so that's good, but just make sure that you choose a really nice framework. You don't want to come in with a framework that is circles. And I love Lewis Lynn. I had him on my podcast. Here's the problem. Everybody knows circles. So you're not showing any sort of you being a structured thinker. You're showing you can just regurgitate what you read in Decode and Conquer, his amazing book. So you want to come up with a unique structure to each case question that's relevant to that case question. More often than not, it's 80% circles because he got it right? You need to comprehend the situation. You need to identify the users. You need to do these simple things, but you want to create what I call unified analysis, a structure that's specific to the question. And then you want to make sure that you follow it and you keep referencing back to that structure in your case interview. And the biggest mistake people make is in circles or whatever framework they have, they do CIRC very well. And then LES, they're just rushing through. So make sure you save time for the end of your structure to actually go through it in a really strong way. And I know you and I, Sid, have done some product design interviews in the past. We face the similar problem, right? Everybody faces this problem. It's so easy to get sucked up with spending time on the CIR at the beginning, but you need to spend time on the CLES. So that's structured thinking. And then there's strategic thinking. It's the buzzword, right? We all hear it, product strategy, focus on product strategy. At this point, I don't even want anybody to talk to me about product strategy, but it really matters. And here's the thing, right? Most PMs, we do get features coming from our executives. We do get features coming from our founder if we're in a startup, right? But we always need to tie it back to what's the strategic impact of building this? Okay, let's say I go ahead, I'm a platform PM. I understand you want me to take on Stripe as our new platform partner, but what's the strategic impact of that, right? By taking on Stripe, maybe we're modernizing our payment infrastructure. Maybe our clients will think that we are a more digital first company, not stuck in the past. Maybe it has lower costs for us. Maybe it helps us get to parity with Amazon because we're Best Buy and we're competing with Amazon. Whatever it might be, you need to bring things back to the strategy. So this is both in terms of your behavioral questions, how you're talking about them and saying, hey, it wasn't just this business impact, but it was actually this strategic impact where we got to parity with Amazon. We drove $10 million in revenue and got to parity with Amazon. So that's the strategic impact of what you did, plus the strategic impact of whatever you suggest in your case interviews. And so always bringing that back. And when people ask me, what is strategy? I always say, how was strategy defined by Michael Porter, right? Michael Porter really made strategy big at Harvard Business School when he published his book called Strategy. He said, most companies only look inward. Strategy means looking outward, talking about how this actually impacts your position in the market. So those are the ways I think a new PM could emphasize these 3 skills.
I read your article, for like close to 30 minutes, so very detailed. It's awesome that you just mentioned. And one thing which I took away from the article that you just mentioned was in companies are looking more for like the big picture strategic thinking, that kind of skills, but other skills like any data skills or any project management skills, those can be learned in the job, right? They're not testing those. That's what one of the key takeaways. And you also bring up one good point about that framework, because we have at least I've seen like in some of the interviews that I've done, people try to take any problem and try to fit in the framework rather than taking a step back and thinking, okay, does that even apply? Is circles even relevant here? Just because circles is most popular, I cannot try to go and fit for every problem.
Abs- Absolutely. I think I've seen that too, right? A lot of people just pick one framework and try to utilize that for all the questions that are being asked. And Akash, thanks for those insights. I just want to reiterate what you said, right? Especially what you're saying is right. Essentially, you looked at all of these interviews, and the top three skills are business skills, thinking, and strategic thinking. For which you say, like, if I'm a PM who's trying to interviewing, like, how do I develop this? For business skills, you say it's more around quantify the impact which you have created through the actions which you have taken, right? So a lot of people just stop at the actions level where they say I've done ABC, but what you doing ABC, what impact did it create? So that's something which everybody has to elevate themselves so that they can talk about the impact that they've created. Second, when we go into the structured thinking, it's about when you're in product design or behavioral, it's more about say, okay, let's start with this point and then go into a structured way of thinking so that it's easier for even the interviewer to follow you. Then again, strategic thinking, it's more about not just the business impact but the strategic impact which you are bringing in, so that you can actually uh, paint that picture of like how strategically are you thinking for the organization. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Those are really good takeaways for interview preparation. Um, any insights that you could give how, I mean, the applicants can, I mean, for the job applying purposes, right? They need to optimize their resume. I mean, as you said previously, you could use the same resume for hundreds of jobs. Now it's not anymore. You need to be specific. I know you have shared some insights in how AI can help optimize resume and some of the cover letters too.
Yeah. If you want, I can show you how this is done. Let's just
Oh,
show
yeah,
people
Great. Yeah.
a live demo here. So
that
what
would
we're
be
going to
awesome.
do is we're going to take a look at a resume here. So I just went to my ultimate guide for PM resumes. I pulled one of the resumes that I had there, okay? And what I've done is I've actually tested all the models. As of publishing late May 2025, this is going to blow your mind, guys. Gemini 2.5 Pro is the best at this. Not Claude, not Grok, not ChatGPT, not DeepSeek. It's Google Gemini 2.5 Pro. And so what you'll do is you'll go into AI Studio and you'll pull up Google Gemini 2.5 Pro. You'll take your resume, you'll copy it. Interestingly, Google Gemini can also just hook straight into your Google Drive, but I just prefer the simple way. So I say, hey, I'm Sally. This is my resume. I want to apply for the job description below my resume. I want to create a totally tailored resume for that job. I know, and let's take a look at that job now. This is a job of Director of Product Management at Epic Games. What do we know about Epic Games? They only like to hire people with gaming backgrounds. I actually worked there, so I know that. Sally, she worked at Spotify, Smule, Shazam. She worked in music. So she is qualified for this job because it's music. However, she has no gaming background. So she's going to also let Gemini know. I know that Epic Games really values gaming experience, and I don't have that. Although I did work at Smule, which makes music games. We need to make my resume scream in every bullet, I'm qualified for this role. Don't ignore me just because I don't have gaming background. Please share back a version of my resume, totally customized for this job.
People are also learning prompt engineering.
Yes, you need to write a good prompt. The better your prompt, the better the output. If you just do a bad prompt, good luck with you. I even will say something like, I really need this job. It's my top job. Act as a professional resume writer who is an expert, e.g. Akash Gupta, right? So if you put that in there, now you do your resume. So you copy and paste your resume. pull out this part and then job description. Well, we don't actually need this part. Yeah, there we go. Only put in the relevant stuff too, because you don't really want to confuse it, right? And then I usually like to add again, now share my updated resume right at the end, because we had so much context, you don't want to get it confused, right? And so the cool thing about Gemini 2.5 Pro, unlike the other AI models, is it's not going to just quickly go. It's actually going to do a really nice job. It's actually running like 15 prompts in the back end, where it's figuring out exactly what it needs to do, creating a new prompt, creating a new prompt, creating a new prompt. So it's going to keep working. It's going to take it usually takes like 80 seconds, but that 80 seconds is a lot faster than it would have taken you. So it would have taken me, Sally, used to take me 15 minutes almost to customize a resume. Watch this though. We're going to cut that 15 minutes into about a minute. And so you can see it's finalizing the resume now. It's also telling you all the things it's doing. It's optimizing the narrative. It's connecting the dots. It's reframing for impact. It's reframing the narrative, and boom. So it's come up with your new resume. Let's take a look at it and let's see if it's any good. Immediately, her summary talks about music and interactive entertainment. It emphasizes Mule because that has the gaming. She talks directly about directly aligning with Epic and Fortnite. And then in her things, if you look here, orchestrated a company-wide user retention workstream. It's very different from what we had before. Every single bullet has been customized for what this job description was asking. This job description was asking for a company-wide retention workstream. So what's her very first bullet? Now it's not data-driven strategy, it's company-wide retention workstream. Every single bullet here is now totally customized for that job. And within 1 or 2 minutes of editing this version here that Gemini Pro has, she's ready to drop the resume. So that is the power of AI and good prompting, is you can go from generic resume to a highly customized resume that screams to the AI applicant tracking system and the recruiter and the hiring manager, yes, this is the right person.
So really like the way it came up with, like it did a lot of thinking. At the same time, it also told you what it was doing. Because a lot of times, like for example, if you would have used the same prompt in ChatGPT, it would have just given me an output without knowing how it came there. So that was pretty interesting to see. And one thing this probably is going to be very handful for everyone, because previously when doing my job searches, sometimes I was lazy to prepare resumes, so spend so much time for each job. I was sometimes lazy to just use the same resume. But given this is just like a 2 to 5 minutes thing, now probably I may have more motivation to do update my resume for every job.
And what I personally do is I parallelize this. And I recommend people do that because it did take 80 seconds. So let's say today you want to apply to 5 jobs. Set off that right away and you'll have all 5. Then you make your quick edits. And then it's not just drop your resume, right? Because let's say you wanted to spend 30 minutes on that job application. You just spent 5 minutes creating your customized resume. Now, maybe spend, what I would recommend, honestly, is 15 to 20 minutes creating a work product that's very specific to Epic Games. Record a Loom video saying, hey, I just want to show you guys that at Smule, I actually did work in games. Here's one of the gaming features. And I also want to show you that I love Fortnite. Here's my Fortnite account. I'm level 68. And I just wanted to say that I would really love this job. And I also looked at some of your LinkedIn profiles, Matt and Lena, and I actually worked with them at Smule. So you could talk to them to hear just the type of work that I do. You do that for 15 minutes. You create your Loom video. You spend your last 10 minutes figuring out, okay, who am I going to send this to, right? I'm going to try to go and figure out, I'm going to search on LinkedIn, Epic Games music. Then I'm going to filter for people currently working at Epic Games. I'm going to remove Epic Games from the keyword, and I'm going to search music. And I'm going to find, okay, these are the 15 people at Epic Games working on music. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I can send out personalized invites to 5 people. So I'll send out personalized invites to 5. I pay for LinkedIn Premium, so I have 5 in-mails. So I'll send out 5 in-mails to them, and then there are 5 more people. I'll go to Apollo.io. find their email address, and I'll email them this customized resume and this work product. That's an example of a differentiated strategy that is really making use of your 30 minutes to apply in a much more powerful way.
Make you more
That's a great takeaway. Because earlier, probably the cold emails and LinkedIn messages were working, but now with hundreds and thousands of people in the job market, I don't think it's gonna work anymore. Because even if you open a job, like one of my friend was saying in Meta that they when they rolled out a position and within like 3 days they got close to 5,000 resumes. It was like they were so overwhelmed that just closed the position because they don't have time to review. So, and on the follow-up question, like I know these are some great takeaways for the people on job market. What are the common mistakes that people are doing, you think, in this job search? Just curious. So people maybe can learn a little bit and correct them.
So the way I diagnose a job search is I look at your job search funnel and I say, where are you struggling? So if you're an experienced product manager like you both, one of the first things I look at is how much inbound are you getting? Like Sid has been in PM for a long time, right? You should be getting a couple inbound a week. And if you're not, then maybe it's your online presence that we need to fix. Then the second thing is you're outbound, right? We just went through an outbound example where you're trying to apply for a job. So I look at how many interviews are you getting? And if you're applying to 3 to 4 jobs a day, you should be getting 1 to 2 interviews a week. And so if you're not doing that, then we'll try to diagnose what your problems are with outbound. Then I look at, okay, your interview success rate. So basically from first interview to finally getting an offer, you should be something in the 10% range. And that might blow people's minds because there's going to be a lot of people here who have had 8 interviews and they haven't had an offer and they're just crying. They're sad. They're saying this market's broken. I'm telling you right now, in this market, 10% is normal. So you haven't even gotten to the 10 interviews yet. Don't despair quite yet. Also, the way interviews work is your skill keeps getting better. And it's kind of like that Jack Butcher chart we just talked about. You're kind of shit for a while, then you get better, and then eventually you just get really awesome. And so most your offers tend to come later in interview 25 to 30. Like people who end up doing 25 to 30 interviews, they end up getting all the ones 25 to 30, even if they didn't get 1 through 20, right? And so I look at where people's strategy is broken. And the big mistake I see is people not focusing on the right step. They'll come to me and they'll say, hey, Akash, I need help with my interviews. And I'm like, okay, well, how many interviews have you gotten? 4. It's like, no. You need help getting interviews. Let's focus on getting you interviews first. Or so it's all about understanding what step and what stage you have a problem. And then we can go in and diagnose and fix it.
So essentially, it almost feels like you have to put 10x more effort and also use these AI tools to be successful, because I've also seen people, right? Like somebody reached out to me saying that I've applied for 15 jobs, haven't got a reply. And he's like, it's so frustrating. And on the other hand, you're saying like people are applying for 300, 400 and 500 different jobs, and they're basically seeing very less reply back and so on and so forth. So essentially, like you're asking people to double their game and start applying and also getting these inbound offers and so on and so forth.
It depends in the market you're in. So if you're in San Francisco, New York, London, Berlin, Amsterdam, Bangalore, yes, there might be 100 jobs that you can apply for. If you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, if you're in Jaipur, if you're in, I don't know, just take a second tier city in Europe, Helsinki. If you're in any of these places, there may only be 15 jobs that you're truly qualified for. And so then you need to take a very different approach, right? You need to say each one of these jobs is very precious, right? So I probably don't even want to apply without a referral to those jobs. And so the very first thing you're going to be doing is working very hard to get a referral. And if 5 of those jobs are at startups, there may only be 10 people working at the company. So you can't just spray and pray with this Epic Games strategy we just talked about, where they have 6,000 people working for them. So you can actually do that. And so if it's a little startup, you need to think very carefully about, how am I going to create a really nice work product? And how am I going to get this in the eyes of them? Because the cool thing about a startup is, actually, it's not like Meta. Yes, they might be getting 5,000 applications in 24 hours, but I'm guarantee you they're probably getting 0 work products. Nobody's actually used their product. Nobody's actually analyzed how their product fits within the market. So if you go ahead and do that extra work, they're going to be super impressed and they're going to want to talk to you. So a lot of it is driven by your own market. And for me, like, I was pretty senior at the end of my career. I was VP. Like, even in San Francisco, there are not going to be that many VP jobs available. And so you might need to use this more precious strategy when you're more senior.
Awesome. Sounds good. So before we go on to the next topic, I just wanted to talk about like the whatever you showed to improve the resume, right? You are actually using Google AI Studio for that, right? And it's free and people can sign up for that, right? So
Yes.
just that if anybody wants to repeat the same strategy which you have used, people can just
Great.
sign up. And would it cost people anything for that?
No cost.
Okay.
At some point, you're going to hit a usage limit. But if you're just customizing like 5 to 10 resumes a day, you're fine.
Okay, cool.
It's amazing. I really loved your thought process on how people should go about their job search. And as I said, it varies by market. And you also brought up a good point about the referral, right? In this market, cold just applying doesn't work with so many people in the market. Excuse me. So I want to double click on the referral part. So I'm sure like not everyone may have friends in every company. So it's sometimes pretty tough to get a referral. And also you cannot randomly people message people to ask for a referral because people may not be comfortable unless they know you. Are there any good like tools or anything related to AI that can help people to get the referrals? Just curious.
Referrals, it's interesting. Like, a lot of people these days, I just spoke at a Duke's MBA cohort, right? And they were saying, yeah, I've applied via referral for 100 jobs and gotten 0 interviews. So even referral is not all of the sudden going to be an unlock for you. But let me answer your question first about, how do you even get that first referral? You can get a referral even if you don't know anybody. And the best way to do that is to approach people with value before you ask for the referral. And so it might be something simple like, hey, actually, this is how I often get podcast guests too, is like, hey, we both live in Los Angeles. We're both product managers. Let's go get coffee, right? I see your office is in Santa Monica. I'm going to be in Santa Monica on Thursday from 2 to 5 p.m. I know there's Intelligentsia coffee. I really love their coffee. I will buy you a coffee at Intelligentsia between 2 to 5 on Saturday. Are you free? If you send this type of message to 5 people, it's highly likely one of them will respond to you, because you're not seeking anything out of them. You're saying, I'm going to buy you a coffee, right? And then in this coffee, you start to do the normal stuff. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? For me, it's like, I run a podcast. Like, you would be a really good guest. But for a job seeker, it's like, hey, I'm looking for a job. I really love Snapchat. You drop down some specific things like that. I know that you guys just released these new AI avatars. I was playing with them. I think they're super cool. It's like something, that nobody else would know, but besides somebody who's actually used the product. And so it shows that you've done this extra work. Boom, right? At the end of it, a lot of times they'll tell you, hey, do you need a referral for the job? Because they get $3,000, right? If they refer you and you get the job anyways. So people also have the incentive on their end. So a lot of it is about creating connections, going from online to offline if you can, because let's be honest, nobody likes another Zoom call. Nobody wants another, hey, can I have a 15-minute chat to pick your brain? I'd rather shoot myself than do that, right? It's like, I don't even like hopping on podcasts if it's not my friends like you guys. Like, it's energy draining. It's not fun, right? And so What is fun is like meeting people. Even like a lot of times if they're younger, it's like, hey, let's go grab a burrito. I don't know if you know, like there's this really good street burrito shop that I'd love to introduce you to that's near your work. Something like that, you know, or hey, there's this LA product conference happening next week. I can get you a free code for that because I know the organizer. Would you like a free code for that? And we could just meet up there, you know? These are the types of things that you do where you're creating a connection, a human connection with somebody. And if you send it out to 5 or 6 people like that, one of them is highly likely to respond to you. And so it's a little bit of the numbers game, but with the numbers game, you're offering some value. And then at the back end of that, you're asking for a referral.
I really love the idea because a lot of times, at least I've seen the LinkedIn messages I get requesting referral at JP Morgan that I currently felt like they just asked, "Oh, I have 10 plus years of experience. I can you help me with a referral?" I mean, that's not it. Like everyone can say that. Like, how do I? The connection is pretty important, so you can at least resonate. Oh, you can spend some time to even typing a message. I feel you're taking time from something else and putting in your effort, right?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And the thing I was mentioning on the back end, right? That Duke MBA is doing 100 jobs with referral and not getting anywhere. That's because their strategy is what you said, where they're just asking for a referral. So when you fill out a referral, you actually say, hey, do you know this person? Have you worked with them? What will make them a good fit for this job? And if they're just saying, they just messaged me on LinkedIn, you know, it's as good as not having a referral. And so the type of referral you want is, oh yeah, I know them. I met them for coffee. They showed me some of the features that they shipped in their last product. I think they were pretty good. You know, those types of things go a long way. So what I talk about is that there are strong referrals and weak referrals. And there's also something in the middle, which is the middle referral. So the middle referral is what I was just talking about, where they haven't worked with you. How can you take that middle referral and make it a strong referral? So what you do is you say, hey, now that you've dropped the referral for me, could you please ping the hiring manager? Could you please ping the recruiter on my behalf? Then the referral really starts to succeed. And so that same Duke MBA student, I've been working with him, he's now getting interviews left and right because they're actually pinging the hiring manager. So amongst the 11 referrals that they see in the applicant tracking system, well, this is the one that actually messaged me. So it actually stands out.
Awesome.
Yep.
I like the way we are going. So we started with the most important skills that somebody has to acquire, and then we moved on to the resume, customizing strategies, and networking. So let's talk about the meat of this, right? Which is the interview process itself, right? So I want to maybe start with like some insights which or patterns which you can talk about, which leads you to offers when you from the point you have gotten your first interview.
So the thing is, again, you need to break down your funnel and understand what interviews are you failing at. A lot of people, they don't have good signal on this. And it's doubly compounded because companies these days, they're often not giving you feedback. They're just saying, hey, sorry, Srinath, we decided to go with somebody else. It's like, okay, was I bad? What did I mess up on? So one of the first things to do is actually try to look very carefully at what stage in the funnel did I fail. And you should assume that if you've made it past this stage, you succeeded in that stage. Maybe you didn't get a 10 out of 10, maybe you only got a passing grade, but at least you passed. And so what I ask people to do is like, look at that. Like, are you failing the first recruiter call? Are you failing the first hiring manager call? Are you failing the homework round? Are you failing the panel interview? Are you failing the product design case study, the product sense case study, the product analytics execution case study? These are basically the main buckets that every company is using these days. So you look at those 6 or 7 buckets and you look at your statistics and you say, okay, what types of interviews am I not succeeding at? Then you can take an approach in a strategy to go deeper on that. If it's product sense, you check out my product sense article. You check out Lenny just released a product sense article as well. You check out resources on product sense. You go to the Exponent or Lewis Lynn mock interview community and you say, okay, I'm going to do 10 product sense interviews in the next 5 days. I'm going to do 2 mocks a day. And what you also do is you record yourself practicing these things. I think this is one of the biggest misses I see is, you yourself are a great critic, but you're not watching yourself. And so people don't realize I'm coming across meek, or I'm using a lot, or my circles framework, I'm stuck on CIR. I'm never getting to CLES. But if you watch yourself, you take really good notes, you record yourself on it. And actually, what I highly recommend doing is getting a transcript of your recording using a tool like Otter AI or anything these days. In fact, the coolest thing about Gemini 2.5 Pro is you can just drop that video in and it'll just transcribe the video for you if you want. And then you ask really well prompt engineered questions, act as a professional product management interviewer, give maybe even the LinkedIn of the person who interviewed you. You are this person, act as them. Now tell me, what are the things that I messed up on in this interview? So a combination of you analyzing yourself, you going deep with peers, and then you going deep with AI on transcripts should really help you solve whatever problems you have in that specific round. So if you have a problem with hiring manager round, you succeed in that. Then you eventually find out you have a problem with product design round. Then you fix that. And so you kind of systematically work through the funnel.
Awesome. So, you just touched upon some of the AI tools, but like, are there any other AI tools that people can actually use to be better prepared at facing these interviews?
Yeah. So I think I've pretty much the only person in the world who's looked at this, which is what are the AI job searching tools out there? And so there are AI search tools for AI job discovery. I really like Simplify and Skill
Mhm.
Syncer. There are ones for writing those cold messages. I really like Apollo.io, Copysmith, and Lavender. There are ones that will even do these automatic applications for you. So I like Sonara and Loop CV. There are things that'll help you customize your resume. My favorites are Teal, Resi, and JobScan. So you can always see the top left is where I've put the ones that I like the most. There's creating work products. So ChatGPT, Claude. Actually, when I wrote this article, ChatGPT and Claude were the best. Now I would say Grok and Gemini 2.5 Pro are the best. If you're watching this video 6 months from now, there will be new models that are the best. And so you yourself stay on top of what the best models are. Building an inbound engine. I really like ProfilePicture.ai, Secta Labs, interview prep tools. There's interview warm up and consulting AI interview simulators. These are underrated. Udemy and Final Round. Final Round is especially really good. And then there's AI interview co-pilots. I recommend everybody get poised and consider consulting AI. So you should be using AI across every step of your job search. Because if you think about it, like we said, supply and demand, they're so imbalanced. You want to get any edge you can. So why wouldn't you use AI?
Awesome. So that's a big list of things which you can use. So for anybody who's watching, right, we'll actually list out all the resources which Akash shared so that you can actually go and start using these tools. But if I were to say, like, if I want to just start with one tool, which would that tool be?
Gemini 2.5 Pro. It'll do everything, all of the above. You just need to engineer your prompt correctly.
Yeah, that's and I think we have been beating down Google AI products till last 1 month, but I've seen Pro do really good with deep search and a lot of these things, and I think it also do a lot of resources. It goes to a lot of sources than ChatGPT or so on and so forth. I think now the power of Google is actually unleashing with Google Pro.
Making
Yeah.
slow and steady progress. I think it's really catching up fast now. I felt like they were taking some time, not rush, but now I feel like they're on par with other tools.
And my typical workflow, honestly, for almost any AI task these days, whether it's job searching, content, I'm buying a house right now, I create a good prompt and I send it to everywhere. So I'll send it to Grok, I'll send it to Gemini, I'll send it to Claude, and I'll send it to ChatGPT. Send it to all four and see which response is better, and then just continue iterating with that one.
Cool.
Yeah. As you said, prompt engineering is probably an art. I mean, recently Sidhu spent some good amount of time in building something called Prompt Hub, which probably it's helpful for other viewers too. Any general tips? Because the way how you give prompt is what matters, right? Uh, to get a right response that you need. Any general tips on how people should go about prompt engineering?
Let's talk about mindset and then tactics. So mindset wise, what you need to realize is that this AI is really freaking smart, but it is smart at everything in the world. Just imagine you're a generalist good at everything. You have all the neurons in your brain. What you need to do, and actually this is how these LLMs work, is they have these neuronal connections, just like a brain. It's all connected in there, but you need to tell it what part of its brain to use. So those little things that we put in that example where I said, act as a professional resume writer, e.g. Akash Gupta, you're getting so specific and you're saying you're really good at customizing the product management resume. Now it's knowing, okay, I'm going into the resume portion of the brain. I'm going into the product management part of the resume portion of the brain. And I'm going to use the techniques and styles of Akash Gupta because he has so much content in my training set. So that is how you're going to give it the idea of what part of its brain to actually use. So that's the most important thing when it comes to prompts. Now let's talk about tactics. Some people say, hey, you should always say please and thank you. You should, always include act as, etc. I think that's all BS, to be honest. I think that the most important things when it comes to tactics are context and output. Context. What is the relevant context that you want to give? So for us, in that last example, it was the resume and the job description. You need to make sure you actually provide that context to the thing. Otherwise, it's not going to have the right context, right? Similarly, we could have made that context even better if what I've recommended some people who are customizing resumes do is we create for each of your jobs the 25 biggest things you did, right? Because in your original resume, you just had the 3 or 4. But what if it had the ability to choose between all 25 you did at each job? And then you tell it 3 or 4 to choose, right? So the more context you can give that is relevant, the better. And a lot of people listening, they're probably product managers and they say, hey, I tried it once for a PRD. It was shit. I don't use it again. But remember, it doesn't have the context of every other feature that you've shipped in the past, how successful those features were, what your CEO cares about, what your designer has said about your prior PRDs, what your engineers have said about your prior PRDs. But if you fed it all that context, and these days the context windows are so big that you can, then it might actually generate a pretty good PRD. And that's what people find. So context is the number one tactic. Then output is the other tactic. You want to be very specific. And so we were as well, where we said, hey, we want this resume to scream, I am qualified for Epic Games. We want it to be the same length. We want it to use these examples, right? And so the more you can specify the exact what you want the output to look like, the more effective the response will be. And a lot of this has to do with writing style. Again, this is a genius. It could write like Ernest Hemingway, or it could write like J.K. Rowling, or it could write like Akash Gupta. You tell it what it should write like. And if you're not Akash Gupta, it doesn't have you in the training data. I have written thousands of articles, so it does have me in the training data. So it could write like me if you want. So if you want, just use me. But there's so many other people. A lot of people, they want to sound like Shreyas Doshi, right? That guy, man, he sounds smart when he writes. Say write like Shreyas Doshi. There's plenty of his writings in the training data. But there's like 5 Shreyas Doshis. So make sure you say Shreyas Doshi, the PM influencer, so that it actually knows which Shreyas Doshi to write about. And so the more specific you can get about style, output, format, I think the better.
So
Context and specific.
a funny story. I was actually looking at a podcast where Sergey, the founder of Google, was talking about that when you're prompting, right, if you actually threaten the model, it tends to give you better results. It's like ask it, at least prompt saying that I'll kidnap you if you don't give me a better answer, then it's doing good. And I was using a vibe coding tool. It was throwing an error, kept throwing it again and again, and I actually used that strategy, and he actually went in and did the due diligence to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a funny story.
I think that will get you a 10x benefit, like context or output, but it will get you a 10% benefit. And so there's other things you can do too, like say please or thank you. I will give you $1,000 if you do this right. Those types of things do help. Act as a champion, give a champion level response. All those things might give you little bits of gains, but it also depends on the model. So it tends to work better actually with Gemini 2.5 Pro which Sergey probably uses that the most. If you look at Grok, it doesn't always. Grok has a very skeptical, sarcastic personality. So if you do that, it might call BS on you and just give you a word response. So you need to be careful and also understand the specific tricks for your model.
Awesome. And one maybe slightly different topic. We talked about first how do you go about job searches. Then we talked about how you go about preparation, how you go about resume writing, cover letters, and all that stuff. How do you go about referral? Okay, now we also talked slightly about the frameworks, how you go approaching interviews. Now, like last step is if people get offers, right? What are some of the best ways or any AI tools that are in place to help with any salary negotiation? I know this market is tough. There's so many people, but still, I think if you don't ask now, it's never. So I think people should at least do some basic analysis and give their number before saying just taking whatever obviously companies will. We want to hire um, as low as possible, right, in terms of cost.
Yeah, it turns out that AI is super helpful here. And people might be skeptical about this, but I just want to, before I even get into that, double click on the point you made, which is way too many of you are scared of negotiation. And I'm going to go ahead and call it the women here. You guys have to negotiate. Even if this is your only offer, even if you have been on the market for 9 months, negotiate. They're not going to take away your offer if A, you negotiate fast, like right away, as soon as they give you the offer. B, your request is made very politely. C, ideally you do it in person or over the phone, not over email. And D, that you bring good information backing up your ask that isn't BS information. And so how do you do those ABCD? I recommend Grok. Grok is currently the best at searching the web. So what you'll do is you'll say, hey, I received this 300K base, 100K RSU, 5% bonus offer as a L4 PM at Google. You drop that into Grok and you say, please search sources like Levels FYI, Glassdoor, Reddit, and these key areas where I could get this information to understand in today's market in May 2025, how competitive is this? And force it. Say, hey, if you had to rank from 0 to 100th percentile, what percentile offer have I gotten? This is called PIR, percent in range. What is the PIR that I have of this offer? Is this a 60th PIR? Is this a 100th PIR, in which case there's no negotiating room? Or is this what's often the case, like a 20th percentile PIR? That's where they start. And let me know, what is the 50th percentile? What is the 100th percentile? And then drop in, this is my background. Here's my LinkedIn. Copy paste my LinkedIn. And even drop in, I've already looked at levels.fyi. Here's a screenshot of levels FYI's basic range, but I want you to go deeper on this and get me specific anecdotes, specific information. I'm located in San Francisco. If you provide all this information, Grok will go and it'll find like that random thread on layoffs.fyi where somebody posted, hey, this is the offer I got last week, and all these different little things that it'll find you that'll help you get additional information beyond just what you're going to get at Levels FYI or Glassdoor. It's going to find those conversations on Reddit. It's going to go ahead and find you that extra layer of information. And it's also going to really help you craft your negotiation. So then once you have your information, let's say you got a 20th percentile PIR and you understand what 50th is and you want to ask for 50th, then you say, okay, Grok, now help me with my negotiation strategy. I got this offer 30 minutes ago. I know I need to make this negotiation happen quick so they don't pull my offer, right? So how should we go forward? And it'll then ask you like, okay, have you been talking on the phone with the recruiter? Do you have the recruiter's phone number? Yes. Then you should go text the recruiter, right? And say, hey, can I call you? And then you talk on the phone with the recruiter saying, hey, the data I'm looking at for PIR is this. I think that 50th percentile PIR would be this. I think I'm coming in at 20th. I think I should come in at 50th because when you compare my experience to other L4 Google PMs, the average L4 Google PM has 7 years of PM experience. I have 9 years of PM experience. So I really do think I'm justified in this 50th percentile PIR. Can you tell me, am I right about my assessment of PIR and right about my standing? and those types of things. Then when the recruiter confirms or disconfirms, then you can send an official email to everybody. Hey, I'm requesting this amount based on this data. Here's the layoffs levels FYI picture. Here's the additional threads that I'm linking to people who have posted about them in various discussion forums. And that's what I want. And if you're doing that quickly, because AI has helped you do it quickly, and you're doing it politely, and you've done the thing where you've talked on the phone, people aren't going to suddenly pull your offer. They're going to say, if this is how she's handling offer negotiation, this is how she's going to handle the job. She's going to be super well prepared. She's going to be super fast. She's going to be super responsive. She's going to ask for our team getting what it deserves. And so that's how I think you should approach the negotiation.
So Akash, we got to the last section here. I have a couple of rapid questions for you, right? So with AI, everything is changing so fast, right? And the advancements keep coming every week now, right? So, and I've also seen that like at work now, I'm actually using vibe coding tools. When I started using vibe coding tools, the whole workflow of a PM, starting with a PRD, then bringing in stakeholders, refining, iterating, then working with design engineering, and coming up with the first prototype, all of that is directly merged into just one using one tool, right? Like if I were to ask you, right, like what do you predict the future will be with all of these AI tools? Like if I were to ask you a bold prediction from your side, maybe how would the future look like 1 year from now and 3 years from now?
Yeah, so I think that 1 year from now, we're going to be pretty similar to where we are, where the lines between PM and designer are blurring, right? Before, designer really did all the prototyping. Maybe PM did a sketch, but they didn't do much more. Maybe they did a wireframe. Now we see, hey, that prototype phase, the PM is actually getting involved. So that's the current state. But in 3 years, I literally think PMs are going to create the first version of features. Right now, the big problem with vibe coding tools is that they don't understand your whole code base. They don't understand your design system and your design language. But in 3 years' time, I think you'll be able to say, hey, here's my entire code base. It's going to understand everything about your code base. And here's my entire design system. It's going to understand everything about your design system. And it's going to give you the first version of a feature. And so PM and product designer, they will be almost merged in 3 years.
Awesome. And the last question which I have is, right, if I were to ask you a hypothetical question of, it would be good if I had this kind of an AI tool, one for work and one for your personal whatever you do.
So I think we really need an AI tool to do customer discovery work. It's not that hard, honestly, right? We've got the prototype already. Let's find 10 people who make sense to put the prototype in front of, get the insights from them about the prototype so that we can improve it better and give us a new prototype. I think all of that should be automated. So that's what I recommend somebody go build, and they're going to build $1 billion company off of it. And then for my personal self, right, I think we need a better way to download context. Right now, if I want AI to write as me, it's still doing a pretty terrible job, right? I mean, I did give some examples like write as Akash Gupta, give your context, but it's still not doing a good enough job. And so I want somebody to build that tool, which is essentially the writing style context tool, where it can truly just say, hey, my domain is www.product-growth.com. Understand my style. It will go in, it'll understand your style perfectly well. And then the type of content it's producing is in your voice. And I think that's coming.
Yeah, very relevant problems. And I know somebody who's watching it maybe already it's easier now to build stuff. So if somebody can build that'll be great. Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot, Akash. It was great talking to you. A lot of good insights for anybody who's watching this, right? We'll list out all of the resources which Akash mentioned, and also list out the newsletter and the LinkedIn profile. So please go and visit him. And Akash, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they?
I'm hard to get a hold of. I'm pretty bad at responding to messages in general. Literally, the best way to get a response to me is to comment on my social media posts. Because as we know, engaging with people who comment on your social media posts drives a success. So the only place I'm really good at responding is if you comment on my posts.
Awesome. Yeah. You know how to get hold of Akash now. Comment on his post. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Akash.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
both.
Akash.
It was awesome getting to catch up a little bit. And yeah, thanks for having me.